Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. I'm Allison Scover, Consolidated Planning Group, here with April Martin and Texoma. Today, we are going to be talking about a letter of intent and why you might need one and what goes into a letter of intent. I always like to go over a few housekeeping items first to get started. We are in webinar mode today, which means that we can't see you or hear you, but we do know that you're there. Our chat box is enabled, so that way if you have questions throughout the presentation, April's going to be monitoring the chat box and she's going to let me know if we have any questions that we need to answer. So today's webinar is being recorded and everybody is going to get a copy of today's slides as well. If you guys are listening to this on a podcast and would like a copy of the slides, you can email us directly at contact@cpgcares.net. That's contact@cpgcares.net, or you can reach out to us by phone at 281-690-1177. That's 281-690-1177. Also, I wanted to mention, if you are here for the first time visiting with us, we're glad you're here. If you've attended our webinars in the past, we're certainly glad you're back. All of our past webinars live on our YouTube channel. We have a Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel that was born out of my own frustration on how difficult navigating everything for a loved one with a disability is. We have almost 400 webinars on that YouTube channel. You can subscribe to it for free. All of the past webinars live out there. And again, if you'd like a copy of any of those slides, you can check it out. But we have extensive topics on Medicaid waivers, SSI and Medicaid, special needs trust, guardianship, you name it, it is out there. We also had a webinar last week with Temple Grandin, which was pretty awesome. She was pretty encouraging. And so you'll want to check that one out as well. So getting started here, April, kind of tell us about some of the upcoming events and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Okay, my name is April Martin, and I'm the Hireability Navigator for Grayson, Cook, and Fannin counties, and I have counterparts throughout the state. And I work to help people know about the benefits of vocational rehabilitation. And in case you don't know what vocational rehabilitation is, it is a grant funded through the U.S. government, and we provide services to both students and adults. For students, it's age 14 to 22, and adults of all ages. And what we will do is we'll do anything that we can as far as providing services to help you obtain, maintain, or upskill your current work. And what that looks like for students is we will help them figure out what they want to do for their education. We're going to look at some gaps and figure out what might be needed to help them meet their goals that they have. And we're also going to look and see if those goals are realistic. You know, if we have somebody who hates math but wants to be an engineer, we might have to re-gear that a little bit. And then we do what's called an individual plan for employment and help those students. We can attend IEP meetings and 504 meetings for students with disabilities. So that's a little bit of what vocational rehabilitation looks like. We have several offices throughout the state. If you don't know where your office is, you can look at the slides and scan. Usually, most all of our offices are what are called co-located within a Workforce Solutions office. And there are a variety of other services at Workforce Solution offices that I'll talk about briefly. But anyway, if you just scan those, you should be able to find your VR office. You can even walk in and say, I just need some help with vocational rehabilitation, and they should have a counselor the day on duty to help you, or you can call, you can make an appointment, or you can also go to the state website, or I have a phone number that I have on one of my other slides that you can call as well. So we can go ahead.
April, one of the things that you said that I love is that services start as early as age 14, and sometimes people don't think that because they think that, you know, generally a person starts working at 16. But the cool thing is you can get services started as early as 14. So maybe they will be ready to work at age 16. And then the other thing is that these programs are funded with state and federal dollars. And so this is no cost to you. So this isn't a sales pitch or anything like that. This is no cost to you and helps to help close some of those gaps or the impediments to employment for your student. And I have to say, as you can probably already tell, I'm a fan. This is this is really good. I love what you guys do.
Yeah, and I do encourage people, if you ever need to change counselors, you can change counselors and caseloads. Occasionally, we have kids who, because we have specialty caseloads that are for deaf and hard of hearing or for blind and visually impaired services. And sometimes they'll get the services that they want there, and maybe they had just a general counselor they liked before. And you can do that as well. Let people know that. And then you can also, let's say, a child decides they want to do cooking or something like that, and they've been working with their counselor for months to figure out gaps and what they're going to need for schooling and those kinds of things. And all of a sudden they're exposed to a new career and they decide that they want to go in a completely different direction. You're not beholden to anything. The plans that we do are going to fluctuate with the student's needs and abilities. So I do want to encourage people that, if you get in something you don't like it, feel free to let your counselor know. You can change. If you'd like to get a hold of one of our statewide counselors, I would say the quickest way is to call the 512 number if you're not going to go directly to a workforce solutions office. And otherwise, you can use the provider locator that is here or was also on the QR scan code.
And I would just also like to mention that most public high schools have a VR counselor, so you can talk to the guidance department and find out who the VR counselor is connected to the school. But if it's the summertime, you can still do this on your own if school is out of session. And then another thing that you said, April, and I just want to comment on this because, we hear from time to time, I don't have a good counselor. I've heard nothing. We signed up for this and I've heard nothing for months. And, I wish it was going better. It's not going well. I would just say and echo what you said. You can get a new counselor. Don't give up on the process. And if you need help moving it along, there is help for you out there. Their organization, as many have all across the country, all across all industries, have struggled with hiring and keeping great staff. And so they're not immune to any of the other issues that other companies are having. But just be patient with that and just know, don't give up on the process is my message from one parent to another. Don't give up on the process. So awesome.
Yeah, it's a service worth pursuing because of the outcomes that you can receive and the help that you can receive. I know we've had a child in it. It was very helpful as well. So some of the other things that we have when I talk about a workforce solutions center is we have employment specialists. You can walk in the door, you don't know what you want to do, you need a job, they'll help you. They'll help you write a resume. We have every area in the state of Texas has what's called a target occupation list. And that is put together by labor market and career information statistics from the state of Texas. And those are occupations in your area that you can go to school for and have it paid for a lot of the time. So definitely look at your workforce board if you're needing a new occupation and find that occupation list because those are in high demand in your area. We offer child care assistance through the Workforce Solutions offices, accessible workstations and printers, and a variety of other things, which we don't have time to delve into, but I just like people to know that those resources are there to help them.
Tell us again where that target occupation list can be found.
The target occupation list should be on every Workforce Solutions website. They are required to yearly access data from the state and then put together that list based on statistical data from their area. And if you can't find it, please feel free to email me and I will help you find it on your website at your Workforce Solutions. I've done that. And also, if you ever have problems getting in touch with a counselor or you're just having trouble with services, feel free to reach out to me. Even if I'm not in your area, I'll be glad to try and help you make a connection.
And also, because we have a lot of people that attend our webinars that are from out of state, I also just wanted to mention that although we are in Texas and we're talking about, VR in Texas, vocational rehab is a national program. It is all across the United States. They may have some different, programs, but they have VR in your state. So you can Google VR and find out the details for your particular state. And again, services for 14 to 22 and beyond 22. It's all out there. And the other thing that I also wanted to mention, and we kind of talked about some of these things before, but the Department of Labor also has something that is called registered apprenticeships. And there are a lot of apprenticeships out there for individuals with a disability that they'll get on the job training and get paid. And, think, skilled labor. I mean, these jobs are all needed, and there's a lot of these jobs, and Temple Grandin was talking about this, they're not replaced by AI, okay? And so there are a lot of these programs out there, so don't forget to check out the Department of Labor as well.
Yes, and also just a side mention, Summer and Learn is coming up. That is one of our paid work programs for students that is part of the vocational rehabilitation program. It's offered during the school year. We call that paid work experience, and then for summer we call it SEAL. The application deadline for that is March 1st for our area. So that means if you would like to have your child working this summer and be in the SEAL program, they need to be enrolled in services during the month of February to be enrolled into the SEAL program. So they need to. Now,
on Summer Earn and Learn, I just refresh me on this. They do need to be in high school for the Summer Earn and Learn program. Is that correct? Or do they do in Summer Earn and Learn?
We're still 14 to 22, but honestly, it is hard to find jobs for 14-year-olds. So I'm going to say most of the time the kids are 16 and above, unless we have a specialized situation. I don't say that to discourage people. I say that to be honest.
And the cool thing is the Summer Earn and Learn program, they have jobs that they get placed in, and depending on your area, and I mean, I've seen the Dallas-Fort Worth area, their rate of pay hourly is kind of crazy. It's like crazy good, like 15 or 16 bucks an hour is pretty good. Different areas are different. We've seen $10 an hour in the greater Houston area. But that's usually anywhere from 10 to 20 hours a week, just kind of depending on the job. So it's a good opportunity, and then it ends and they can get back to school and everything. So I think it's worth a shot to check on that, but for sure, getting in on that before it's a little bit too late. When do the jobs actually start? I know that they've got to register early, but when it comes to Summer Earn and Learn, what is the soonest that the job starts, and when do they typically end by?
Most of the jobs start at the end of May, 1st of June, and they're going to end by August. We want them to be well finished before their school begins in the fall. And one other thing to remember about those jobs is they can work a few more hours in the summer than they can in the fall. And you can plan for vacations and those kinds of things, because I know sometimes I hear parents say, well, we're going on vacation, so they can't do this program. You can absolutely work with your counselor and with the employer to plan for a vacation for most of the jobs. So, and then this last slide that I've got was just, if you need to get in touch with me, you can scan that QR code. And I have what's called a Padlet, and I keep resources on there, like a lot of the pamphlets and flyers that I would give by working with you directly are located there.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think, honestly, a lot of the services that your organization provides is sometimes the best kept secret. I mean, if you hear about it through the school, through the classes or through the counselor system, that's great. But unless you attend something intentional, you might not always know about those. So thanks for taking the time to share with us. Guys, we'd like to just invite anybody, if you have any questions throughout this presentation, just want to remind everybody, go ahead and put those in the chat box and we'll get to all of those, and just remind everybody again that we are in webinar mode today, so we can't see you or hear you. This is being recorded. You will get a link to the recording, and later you will get a copy of today's slides as well. So Consolidated Planning Group is a holistic special needs financial planning firm. We have over 30 years of experience. We're nationally certified Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we're also an advisory and consulting firm. Sometimes, we want to spend some time on talking about the differences of what an attorney does, like an elder law attorney or a special needs attorney, and what we do, because a lot of times there's confusion on what our role is and what others' role is. And I simplify things by saying they're the paper and we're the money. You need the legal documents, the guardianship, the special needs trust, the wills, etc. And how much do we need to fund the special needs trust? How do we have the money in the right buckets to preserve eligibility for state and federally funded programs? We help people set up ABLE accounts, put lifetime care plans in place, protection plans, and work with transition planning. Fewer than 0.1% of all financial advisors are nuanced in special needs. So it's a small group of us that work in the special needs side of the house, and that matters because your situation is specialized. You want to work with a specialist to preserve the eligibility for state and federally funded programs, and some of our other webinars talk about some of those programs. We help people determine who's going to care for their child when they're gone. We help develop those future care plans that are going to answer some of these questions. And we suggest that people plan now. Plan now when you are of sound mind and body. Don't wait till you're 80 years old or until somebody's had a stroke or a heart attack. We've had it, what I call it, if in life happen, that has changed everything. Having a plan and working our plan, when it comes to caring for a loved one with a disability, our semblance of retirement looks different than other people who have neurotypical kids that sail off into the sunset after college and, live their lives. And I think of it as the marathon, not the sprint. And having balance in all of that our retirement does have some of the look to it that what we had hoped that it would be, along with those caregiving duties and other things that come along with that. So we help people with all of that. So let me just move right here. I think I went too fast here. So today we're talking about what is a letter of intent. Why do I need one? I often talk about a letter of intent being a family love letter, a love letter that you're writing to the family members that when you are no longer here or you are incapacitated and cannot say the things that you need to say, that they know what needs to happen for the person that you love with a disability. Some of our loved ones have communication deficits. Some of them communicate clearly. Some of them have intellectual disabilities and maybe can't as clearly communicate their needs. And as parents, I always say that we have forgot more than anybody will ever know as it relates to our kids and what their needs are. And the thing is it's just kind of like an old habit. We just do it. You just get up and you just do it every day. You don't think about it. You don't maybe have a list that you're checking off. You just do it. But that is not the case for somebody else that might be slipping into your shoes. And as parents, and a lot of our kids struggle with change, depending on what their disability is. A lot of our kids really struggle with big changes. And a loss of a parent is a significant, major change. So having this letter of intent in place is designed, it's not going to take away the grief of the loss of a loved one, but it is designed for the person that is going to be slipping in and filling in for the role that you once did or that your spouse once did, that they have the tools and resources and knowledge of how to do it best. What we're trying to prevent is that people are tearing your house upside down, file cabinets under the bed, wherever you stash stuff to get information, right? To figure out who is that doctor anyway. Who is the contact for XYZ? Where are those legal documents? So it's a part of the planning process when we're planning for special needs, but it is not a legal document. There are things, it can basically ensure that your trustee or your guardian knows your child's functional abilities, routines, interests, particular likes, dislikes, and really what your heart is. So some of the questions that come up when it comes to a letter of intent: do I really even need a letter of intent if I already have a will and, last testament or a revocable trust or a special needs trust, if I already have guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, alternatives to guardianship? And my opinion is yes, you do need this. This is an important document because Those documents are the legal documents. Those are the legalese all written out that the late person reads it and says blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of legal words and stuff like this. The letter of intent is going to be a lot more personal. The financial future and making sure that we have money in the right buckets and preserving eligibility for state and federally funded programs is one component of planning for special needs, but making sure that we have communicated the things that we know, the things that are important to your loved one is really, really important. So the letter of intent is really going to communicate your knowledge, including specific hopes and desires and dreams for your child's future and well-being. It's going to identify diagnosis, health history, medications, dosages, treating physicians, names, address, phone numbers, likes, dislikes, especially for our kids that don't communicate, what makes them thrive and do well, and what causes a major meltdown. How do we prevent the major meltdown, right? Those are things that we just know, we keep in our pocket, we just know, and from the strategies and years of caring for our loved one, but somebody else may not know that. They may not know that every time you leave a house that they have this security item that needs to be in their pocket or in their lap or whatever it is. Those types of things kind of go into this document, and it sounds silly, but every single child is different. Everybody's letter of intent is going to be different, and I would say that it changes and evolves through the years. So first things first, if you don't have a letter of intent, okay, first, don't beat yourself up. It's not a big deal. You're here today, not about looking back. It's about looking forward. I could also tell you that when you're creating your letter of intent, that it can be emotional. You're thinking about hopes and dreams. You're thinking about, coulda, shoulda, woulda, things that have gone well, things that haven't gone well, and it's all there. So give yourself some grace and give yourself some time to complete this. No, you don't need to take a year to complete it, but give yourself a couple weeks. If it takes a month or two, work on it for a little while, come back to it. And then once you have it done, we suggest that you update this regularly. For most people, I suggest that you update it twice a year, at the very least once a year, whenever you're changing the batteries in your smoke alarms at your house or whatever it is that you do once a year. Or twice a year, kind of schedule it for that time as well. Now, some families have a loved one and their child's diagnosis is pretty fluid. It's changing rapidly. There's rapid hospitalizations and surgeries and other things that are ever evolving. So for families that find themselves there, you may want to update yours more frequently than someone who has a pretty static diagnosis. It really doesn't change. It's about the same. We just get older and it's a new year. Okay. So that's another point here. How are we? Are we good on questions, April? Okay, perfect. So some of the information that should be in your letter of intent, family information. Where did you guys come from? What's the family history? Medical history and care. Any government benefits. What government benefits are they getting? Are they getting SSI and Medicaid? Are they getting SSDI and Medicare? Are they getting a combination of the both? Are they getting retirement, survivor, disability income under a parent's record, or survivor benefits where one of the parents has passed away? The details of the government benefits are helpful. One thing that I'm going to mention here, it's not in my slides, a lot of families are what is called the representative payee for SSI, okay? So that basically means that your loved one doesn't really have the capacity to call and deal with the Social Security Administration. Maybe they can't handle money, so you are their representative payee. Nobody at the Social Security Administration typically remembers to tell you this, but when you are your loved one's representative payee, you can name a successor rep payee, up to 3 successor rep payees with the Social Security Administration. If you haven't done this, write this down. You need to do this. And here's why. When you are your child's rep payee and something happens to you, you pass away, you become incapacitated, guess what? The SSI benefits stop if there is not a successor rep payee, until they can determine who's going to be the successor rep payee. And this is a pain, and yes, they'll go back and pay the back pay, but we've seen it take up to 2 years to get worked out. So you can avoid this completely for free by contacting the Social Security Administration and telling them that you need to name a successor rep payee. As far as who is the rep payee, it is my suggestion that whoever has the most time to sit on hold with the Social Security Administration is the representative payee. Because sometimes hold times are long, conversations are long, there's a lot of back and forth. So a person that, for instance, is a surgeon might not be a good idea to be the rep payee because they're in and out of surgery, and sitting on hold for an hour with the Social Security Administration might not work for their employment. Okay, so that was just a sidebar there, but I wanted to mention that because that's something that a lot of people don't know. So back to this letter of intent, we want to think about the living arrangements and accommodations. So does your child live at home? Do they live in a tiny home or an upstairs garage with a caregiver? Do they live in a residential living facility? What are those arrangements? How are those arrangements being paid for? Are they being paid for by the family out of a special needs trust? Are they being paid for by a Medicaid waiver? Those details matter as well. So thinking of Medicaid waivers, if your child is on the waiting list, you're going to want to let your loved ones know in your letter of intent what waiting list are they on. Are they on HCS, Texas Home Living, Community First Choice, CLAS? And Medicaid waivers exist in every state. They're called something different, but they are Medicaid waivers in your state as well. So if they're on the waiver interest list, some states don't have a waiting list. Texas is not the case. We have a long waiting list. But who is your local intellectual disability authority? How do they contact? If they're actually getting a waiver, who is your caseworker? What is the 800 number to reach these folks? These are things that you've got speed dialed in your phone. You don't think about this stuff, but this is stuff that makes people lose their ever-loving mind when they're trying to figure out, how do I get this care paid for? What do I do here? So all of those things. Educational history, where do they go to elementary school, middle school, high school? Do they have higher education? Name, address, and phone number of any employment history that they have. Personality, habits, what they prefer from a recreation or fitness perspective. How do you guys view spirituality? What are your values? Are there very specific things that are just family things? This is what we do. This is part of our life, and this is very, very important to us. A lot of families have those things, and those things need to be in there as well. Who are successor guardians? Who is your legal team? Who did your guardianship? Who did your special needs trust and will? Is that attorney still alive? How do we contact them should we need them? It's really, really important that we have power of attorney finances, power of attorney medical. This is something you might have heard it called a POA, power of attorney, or HCPOA is another acronym that people throw around for the healthcare power of attorney. And what I would say, whether a person has a kid with a disability or not, all adults should have a power of attorney and a healthcare power of attorney in place. And all adults with aging parents should have intentional conversations with any aging parents about their healthcare power of attorney and power of attorney. Sometimes we see that your mom and dad have done these documents 25 years ago, and their successor POA or healthcare POA is deceased now, and they didn't think to look at that anymore. So it's important to dust these documents off from time to time. When it comes to legal documents, wills, special needs trust, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, we advise that it's good to look at these every 3 to 5 years. Now, I'm not saying every 3 to 5 years you need to redo them, okay? I'm not saying that, but I am saying that laws change from time to time. So having a refresh, having the attorney that you worked with review them, see if there's any changes to the law, any refresh that you need. And what I will also tell you is when you look at your documents, I updated all of mine at the end of last year, and we were laughing at some of the wording that we had in there, which was appropriate at the time, but life has changed. and it's not at all appropriate now. So it was just like, wow, glad we looked at this. And so you're going to have some of those moments. And we've seen documents where people, their documents are so old, the second and the third kid aren't even in there. You know, so it's time to update those and look at that kind of thing from time to time. Very, very important. Some of your employers have legal plans that you may have signed up for. You can look on the list and ask them if there's any attorneys that are specifically nuanced and special needs. So some of these legal plans that you might sign up for through your employers may offer a free will, a healthcare power of attorneys, HIPAA, things like that. So it's worth checking on those. We do also, just like when it comes to the financial side of the house for special needs, we suggest you work with a specialist. But when it comes to attorneys on planning for special needs, we totally recommend that you work with a specialist. So if you've been here before, you've heard me say, so your brother, the real estate attorney that's going to do the special needs trust for you for free, say no. Just say no. It's important that you work with a specialist. It's important that the wording in these documents are correct in the eyes of the Social Security Administration to preserve the eligibility for state and federally funded programs. So attorneys, elder law attorneys that are nuanced and special needs, that's what they do. They eat, sleep, and breathe this. They know the law backwards and forwards, and it's really important in that regard. Do we have a question, April?
We do not right now.
Okay, perfect. Another thing that is important, one is the location of important information, insurance policies, bank accounts. You know, the document that we have a template for the letter of intent, and everybody's going to get that today. But the document that we have has a lot of information and space for policy numbers, who is the insurance carrier, who's your electric with. If both of you are gone tomorrow, who's the mortgage with? Who do they contact about these things? It's important to know this, and it's important to update this information for folks that might be looking at all of these things. What are your wishes for final arrangement for said loved one? You know, is there a prepaid, you know, final expense thing that you've already set up, and who is that with? Who do we contact for that? So some of this, depending on the, you know, the capacity of your child and kind of where they are. I mean, a lot of our kids are getting where they're going. They're still growing and learning all the way up past age 26, but consider inviting your child to help prepare any of the information that they have interest and capacity to be involved in. And so that way that their desires are included as well, as much as you can include them. Okay, so we like to give examples here. So if you kind of need help getting started, because like I said, it's not, I wouldn't call this process painful, but like I said, it can be emotional. When we start out and we get married and we have kids for the first time, our vision is that, not that we're going to have a child with a disability. So things, you know, things change. And the greatest blessings on our life are our kids with disabilities, and that's okay. But so let's think about Hannah. Hannah likes to dress herself, but she needs a little bit of help picking out the right outfit. She sometimes needs help with buttons and zippers and deciding what is weather appropriate. She really enjoys wearing clothes that are soft, nothing that will be scratchy on her skin. She also prefers colorful clothing and pants instead of skirts. She likes to walk to school with her friends Lena and Scotty, with me following closely on course here. So some of the things, like whatever the morning routines are before bed, getting up in the morning, and those types of things, whatever those morning routines, again, some of our kids are very calculated. They have a plan and they work their plan. And as long as they know what the plan is, they're good. But when the plan falls apart, they fall apart, right? So it's important to just document whatever that plan is for your loved one. So as I mentioned, here at Consolidated Planning Group, we actually do have a template. It is a form fillable template for the letter of intent. And so we're going to send that out to everyone. We're just going to send a copy of today's slides, a link to the recording, We're also going to send the letter of intent workbook. Anybody that's listening on the podcast, if you'll email us at contact@cpgcares.net, we'll be happy to send that to you as well. And this might sound overwhelming, but this thing is 20 pages long. Okay, so that is a lot of information that's going into there. And that's why we're saying, hey, do this in steps, do this. You know, you don't have to sit down and complete this document in one setting. You absolutely don't have to do that. But because it is form fillable, it is easy to edit this. Now, can you create your own letter of intent? You absolutely can. Can you Google and probably find templates online? Probably. I haven't really done that. Can you create this on your own in just a regular Word document? You absolutely can. But what my recommendation is that you do something electronic that is form fillable as opposed to a notebook, because of the way that we're editing this a couple of times a year. It's going to be a lot easier to edit this that way as opposed to handwriting. One thing that I love about this template, it is at the end, it has several pages where you can basically write that letter. So a lot of this is the form fillable, the factual information. This is where he went to school. This is the diagnosis, etc. But there's just a lot of free space to say, hey, here's my heart. You should know this. This is really, really important to me. When I started out on this journey, you know, this is the story. Whatever story you need to tell, whatever you want to make sure that somebody else knows, that's going to go in that free space. So if you're wondering why there's so many pages of free space, that is the why behind that. So how are we on questions? Are we still okay?
We are still okay. I'm answering one, but it's just for contact.
Somebody said, do we have the letter of intent in Spanish? That is a great question. And I don't know that we do, but I think I have contacts that could convert it to Spanish. Turns out Google Translate is not good at converting things to Spanish, so I won't be doing that. But we do have some people that we have worked with over the years that I think could convert that to Spanish for us. So check back with us on that. So some of the things that we think about caregiver concerns when it comes to planning for special needs. 53% of caregivers said that their own health had worsened due to caregiving, or that their health had declined and affected their ability to provide care. 53%. That's a big deal. Okay, so we're sound mind and body. We're feeling pretty good now. But you might not be when you're 75 or 82. And like I said, this is the marathon, not the sprint. So when we're thinking about balance, that's what we think about. When we're thinking about a plan or a future care plan for a loved one with a disability, we're thinking one that has balance, that has respite, that has recreation for mom and dad or the caregivers, that also has, you know, an enjoyable life set up for your loved one with a disability, whatever that looks like. Maybe they go to day programs. Maybe they live in a place like Marbridge or Brookwood or Daymark Living. Maybe they attend programs several days a week, but they live at home for as long as you can. But thinking about those things now, again, is so critically important, and not waiting for the crisis to happen. We had a webinar, I think it was last year, of what happens when you don't plan. And we actually had a client that wanted to do this webinar. He was a cousin to an adult with disabilities, and his cousin, his aunt, and uncle both passed away. And there was no plan in place. And this cousin lives in out of state, and he lives in California, and this guy's in Texas. And I mean, it was a big deal, and we got it all worked out. But the thing is trying to navigate these things. It's like we all have, I call it the days turn into weeks and the weeks turn into months. And before you know it, you've had something on the shelf for a couple of years that you were going to get to, but you haven't got to it yet. And so that's what we want to try to avoid. And then as your ideas change and life changes and your plan evolves, but it's not that we don't have a plan. So in this example, this guy was at risk of losing his HCS waiver, which he waited 17 years to get. I mean, he was a fish out of water because he lost both his mom and his dad, and he had nobody. So in the meantime, he had somebody. People in Texas were awesome and swooned in and helped in the pinch because he literally shouldn't have been living there by himself. So, those are all kinds of things that happen along the way. But our point is get things taken care of now, so that isn't the case, and you don't have somebody trying to pick up the pieces. The letter of intent is going to help with that. The will, the special needs trust, the guardianship, the successor guardian named, the successor rep payee, and the SSI is all going to help. 55% of caregivers are unaware how to establish a lifetime financial plan for their special needs dependent. The truth is, when it comes to planning for special needs, we got a big mountain in front of us. So most of us are going to spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. That is a very, very long time. But when we have a loved one with a disability who has care needs for the rest of their life, they may have care needs another 25 to 35 years when we're gone. So it's like a third bucket for retirement. So planning carefully to make sure that you're having a comfortable financial retirement and able to do the things that you want to do in retirement, but also having enough money to fund that special needs trust is going to be important. April, what do we got?
We just had somebody ask how they could get a copy of the letter of intent, and I said that one would be sent out today that's fillable that you had mentioned, and it would just be sent out with the webinar, correctly?
Yes, we are going to send that out with the webinar. And also, I guess you said this already, the target occupation list. You said it's specific for their area, so there's not a target occupation list for the state per se?
There is not, no, it's based on each area.
Okay, I was going to attach that if we could do that as well. Okay, so when it comes to things to keep on your planning radar, we often, as we're coming to the close of our webinar, we always talk about the things to keep on your planning radar. Developing a special needs care plan, obtaining future care cost estimates. That's something we do. How much money do I need to fund the special needs trust? And we do that, I say small, medium, and large. Some of our loved ones are going to need full care, and there's no question. We know this. Some are going to need some care. Some might get by with a little bit of care. So we can do, big and small and everywhere in between. The Texas waivers and interest list, Medicaid waivers, if you're attending from out of state, making sure that your loved one is on those interest lists and where they are on the interest list. And a pro tip here, in Texas, your Texas benefits, I think it's yourtexasbenefits.com, the Medicaid sign-in basically has a link on their website in your sign-in for interest list, and you can click the button and you can see where your child is on the list now. It used to be that you had to call your local authority and talk to one person who would tell you where they are on the list, but now you can see class, HCS, Texas Home Living, exactly where they are on the list. That was an update last year that was a long time coming, and I love it. So you can kind of see where things are on that. And if you don't, when I'm talking about these Medicaid waivers and you don't even know what I'm talking about, you need to get on the list, but you don't know where to get on the list, on our YouTube channel, basically everything on the things to keep on your radar, we do have a webinar for that topic. We do have a Medicaid waivers webinar, and it tells you exactly how to get on those waivers lists, how to check, and those types of things. So SSI, SSDI, understanding the difference, knowing when to apply, ABLE accounts, beneficiary designations. Almost every webinar I do, I remind people how critically important it is not to name your loved one with a disability as a beneficiary on anything you have. And this means grandma and grandpa too. Grandma and grandpa should not name your little Johnny as a direct beneficiary in anything they have. The way we do this the right way is we leave it to the benefit of little Johnny's special needs, third-party special needs trust. So if we leave money outright to our kids, if they get more than $2,000, they're going to lose their eligibility for Medicaid, because that's the asset limit for Medicaid. They're also going to lose their SSI if they're getting it. So having money in the right buckets, having a third-party special needs trust that we leave money for the benefit of said child is the right way to go about doing that. Again, entire webinars on special needs trust, first party and third party, how they work, why you might need one over the other, why you might need both. That's all on our YouTube channel. Guardianship, alternatives to guardianship, power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney, supported decision-making agreement. Some states, Texas happens to be that state, one of those states that has a supported decision-making agreement. So we have information on that as well. We do suggest that you start touring residential living communities. Waiting lists can be long. And I'm not saying, hey, how can we put your loved one somewhere? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying one day you may not be able to provide the caregiving services that you once did. Having your kids on these waiting lists, 18 plus these waiting lists, gives you the freedom of choice to say yes when they come up on the list, but not having them on the list is a problem, because when the crisis comes, guess what? There's no room. So that's the issue with that. So we say, start touring those early. A lot of the places across the country, across the state, they want you to tour, at least do a virtual tour prior to getting on their list. So that is a thing. One thing I didn't mention, and this is usually on my list, when it comes to SSI and Medicaid, oftentimes our kids aren't getting SSI or Medicaid prior to them turning 18. When they turn 18, even if they've been denied before, everything changes. It's based off of your income and assets prior to them turning age 18, which is probably why they got denied. It's based off of their income and assets after they turn 18. So an important factor that you need to know is if you have child support that is continuing post age 18 for your loved one, that needs to be redirected to a first party special needs trust, or it's going to be counted against your loved one for income purposes as it relates to SSI. So you'll have to work with a qualified attorney on that, but that is important. So if you've got a 17-year-old, you're getting child support for life, or it's being extended because the kid is still in school, or being extended because the kid has a disability, you need to be working with an attorney, A, to open up the first party special needs trust, and B, to get it redirected to that first party special needs trust so they actually will be eligible for SSI. And some people learn this the hard way, and it's not widely out there. I try to make a point to talk about it. In Texas, oftentimes, not always, oftentimes child support will continue post age 18. April, what do you got?
Allison, I do just have a general question, thinking about the letter of intent and the general information that you've provided. First of all, would you say that the letter of intent, if somebody's done nothing and they're a little bit overwhelmed by some of the information you gave them, would that be just a good point just to reach out to a special needs planner and attorney, get those appointments set up, and get the letter of intent together while they're waiting, just kind of as an organizational and processing part to help them?
Yes, I think for sure. And one of the things I like to tell people is not to be scared to reach out to a special needs planner or a special needs attorney. For one, we always offer free personalized consultations. So if you're having some questions and you wanted to get answered, you didn't want to put them in the chat box or say it out here, we can absolutely, meet with you, and we don't have any charge for that. The attorneys are not going to bite you either. You don't have to know everything that you need. You don't have to be a wizard and know that you need X, Y, Z. That's what they do. They're the professionals. And that comes right down to guardianship too. I know a lot of families kind of put off that conversation because they're not sure what they need. They're not sure what they want. Our kids at 18, one could argue that all kids at 18 need guardianship. But anyway, we don't really know. And in the state of Texas, different states do things differently, but it's the least restrictive, most appropriate. And I use the word for the individual. The state used the ward, ward, W-A-R-D, but for the least restrictive, most appropriate. And what the attorney is going to do is work with you. They're going to talk to you about your loved one. What do they do? What can they do? What can't they do? What are their limitations? what is their functionality, and they're going to help guide you in the most appropriate way to what is the least restrictive and most appropriate for your child. So you don't have to go into that meeting with the attorney to say, I want guardianship, right? In fact, I mean, I think that that's not what they want you to do because of the least restrictive, most appropriate. Some families, there's no question, it's 100% slam dunk. We know that the person needs guardianship. They, have an IQ in the 50s, they're deaf, they're blind, no communication. I mean, there's some things like that. There's some things, every family is different, it's a slam dunk. But we also have a lot of families that have kids on the spectrum, and the spectrum is just that. It is a wide variety of where they are on that spectrum, and also where they're going and where they're going to be at age 27 or 30 versus where they are at age 18. So a qualified professional is going to help you do that. I know for us, when we're meeting with people, we're not here to rain on any of the good planning that you've already done. Most of the people that have come to us have already done some planning. A lot of people come to us because they want to get a second opinion or a look under the hood of what they already have in place. What do I need to do? What do I need to change? And we call those turning the knobs. How can we turn the knobs a little bit to perfect what you already have in place, to take advantage of what maybe some offerings that you might have through group benefits at work or something like that. So we can help on all of those fronts. But I would just say, I think part of it is just getting started. And it's really not about looking back about what you haven't done. It's about looking forward and taking the next step. It's about being real with yourself. If you've had stuff sitting on the shelf for months or years that need to be dusted off and kind of pick up where you left off, it's just kind of, it's about picking that back up and running with it. We do a lot of webinars. It is my heart to provide tools and resources and advocacy for families with special needs. In my own life, I thought it was unnecessarily difficult when we were transitioning, and I do this. I eat, sleep, and breathe this. I know this stuff, and I would say it was unnecessarily difficult. So that's why our YouTube channel exists. It's the Consolidated Planning Group YouTube channel. And like I said, you can hear all the past webinars out there. Today, you're going to get a copy of these slides, and it's going to have a link to our upcoming webinars that you can register for any of the topics that you are interested in, kind of on the planning scale. I do a lot of the webinars. Michelle does a lot of the webinars as well, but we work on a collaborative team here at CPG. So we always like people to have some faces with the names. Again, we're nationally certified Social Security advisors, members of the Special Needs Planning Academy, and we always stand ready to help you in your planning journey. So on this last slide here, this is a QR code that you can put your camera over, and it'll take you to a calendar. So if you want to schedule a free personalized consultation, you can check out the calendar and get on our schedule for that. April, do we have any additional questions? We're a little bit early today. I thought we might be, but I'm happy to take any additional questions that anybody has.
We did not. So, I mean, if somebody wants to post one, I'm sure that you'd be glad to answer it. I did have just one question because I know that $2,000 mark, I hear it all the time. Let's say somebody has an account with more than $2,000. You can help with that, right? Or in combination with a lawyer?
No, we can definitely help with that. The lawyer, so we're the money, we're the paper. So with the lawyer, if you have the paper in place, right? So one thing is, people say, well, my kid does have more than 2,000, so should I apply for SSI? No, because you're going to get denied. So what do I do with the money? Can I just close the account? People think, I'll just close the account. That's a bad idea. Okay, that is an illegitimate move, right? But there are a lot of legitimate moves that we can do with the money that will get them, back where they need to be. First things first, we can open an ABLE account. We have an entire presentation on ABLE accounts. We can open an ABLE account as achieving a better life for an individual with a disability, and it follows the gift tax exclusion. So for 2024, a person can have up to $18,000 a year into the ABLE account and an additional $14,580 if the individual is working and it's kind of coming from earnings. So that is one place, if we have more than $2,000, that we can put into an ABLE account. Another place that we can put money more than $2,000 that's not counted for SSI and Medicaid purposes is a special needs trust, a first party or a third party. And basically, this is how it works. If it's the kids' money, it's their money, it's in their name, it's got to go into a first party special needs trust. So if there was a lawsuit and there was a settlement, for instance, it's the kids' money, it's got to go into a first party special needs trust. If it's not the kids' money, grandma and grandpa want to leave money to said child, then that could go to a third party special needs trust. So an ABLE account and first party special needs trust if it's the kids' money. And quite honestly, if it's not the kids' money, then it's not in their name, then it's not going to count against them for Medicaid and SSI purposes. The other way, so we've talked about the ABLE account and the special needs trust. Those are places that you can have the money. Another way that you can do it is spend it down. And I'm not saying you have this large sum of money and go on a shopping spree and spend it all. But what I am saying is most of the time our kids' care needs are way greater than any few $100s that they have over $2,000. So, you know, if it's a transition program or co-pays, it could be an iPhone or adaptive equipment. It could be recreation. If you can, it could be clothing, it could be meds, it could be anything, honestly. So you can spend it down and have receipts to show that. That is also legitimate. But again, what I'm telling you is it's not cool to hide the money, to close the account, move the money to your account. They're totally hip to that. It doesn't work. It's a bad idea. And a lot of times people don't talk about that. They just don't know. But there is a look back on that kind of stuff. So just make sure as we're getting us under that $2,000 mark that we're doing it in the right way. We can definitely help you guys open up an ABLE account. Okay. So thanks everyone. You guys have been wonderful today. Thanks, April. It's always my pleasure to partner with you. And you're such a wealth of information when it comes to VR. So for anybody that hasn't heard of VR today, we definitely hope that you'll check out some of the links that April had out there. Get your child signed up for VR. You'll be glad you did. And if you've had a bad run with VR in the past, give them a second chance. Unless your kid is working and thriving and you don't need VR anymore, give them a second chance. There's a lot of good programs. And what April didn't say, and I'm a walking commercial for VR. You think I work for them. But anyway, again, they have big dollars, state and federally funded dollars in their program. They pay for testing to help determine what those impediments to employment are. They pay for training to close those gaps. And if it's in line with the plans for the future plan of employment, they may even pay for college. I mean, it's a big deal. I've seen them, and this isn't a slam dunk. It doesn't mean that they're going to do this for everyone, but I've seen them do disability driving school because the kid needs to be able to get to work. I've seen them cover things that you might not think that they cover. So I think it's just definitely worth checking it out. So thanks so much, everyone. Have a great afternoon, and we'll look forward to connecting with you guys again soon. Bye now.